Welcome to Gen Z Money, episode 45.
In Bitcoin specifically, in order to hack the actual network of Bitcoin and get a hold of someone's private wallet, or even if you lose your keys, your key phrase, and you want to try and hack into your Bitcoin wallet to gain access to it, you need to solve a math equation, essentially. And the amount of numbers in this math equation are 10 times 2 to the 256th amount of digits. So it's like one of the largest numbers out there, if anyone's good at math and could figure out how many zeros that is. So the amount of guesses you would have to do is just like infinitely long.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Gen Z Money Podcast, where we turn financial peace to your reality. I have a much different episode for you guys today that I really think is going to shed light on so much with current times. I bring on Patrick Sullivan, and me and Patrick go back and forth with this whole crypto, Web 3.0, NFT, just listen, guys, when I tell you I learned so much from this episode, it's an understatement, okay? And I'm sure you guys are going to learn so much from this episode also. We go over, he explains so much about crypto, where the value lies, what he thinks about it, his projections. And even though, he's not perfect and he doesn't know everything, he knew much more than me. So it was so great to have someone on and to educate. You guys know I'm not a crypto investor, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to educate myself on it, because it is the future. We also get into things like Web 3.0, where he breaks that down for us. So this is such a different episode. It truly is me asking all the questions I think you guys would have, producing all the skepticism that you guys may have. And he breaks it down, and man, oh man, is he so knowledgeable on this stuff. So I don't want to give too much away. This is a great episode if you're thinking about getting into crypto or NFTs or Web 3.0. With that being said, guys, let's jump right into my interview with Patrick. Patrick, welcome to the Gen Z Money Podcast, man. How are you doing on this amazing afternoon?
I'm doing phenomenal. Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited for this.
The pleasure is truly all mine. You bring an area of expertise that I, quite frankly, am very still new to, which is the whole crypto, NFT, Web 3.0 space. So it's so awesome to have someone who knows more than me come on and explain this stuff. So I really appreciate you coming on, man.
Absolutely. Honestly, if there's one thing I've learned so far, is that the more you dive into it, the more you understand that you don't know anything about it. It's crazy how much stuff's going on in this space.
It's so funny you say that, because you're not the first person to say that. Like, I had Brandon on podcast episode 38, and he straight up said, like, the more he learned about crypto, the less inclined he was to invest in it. So it's the first time I ever heard anybody even say that. So it blew my mind.
Yeah.
But of course, I don't want to just jump right into this whole crypto space. I actually want to get to know you as a person. I want the listeners to get to know you as a person. So Patrick, let's start with the beginning. Let's go to 10-year-old Patrick. How was money talked about and viewed as you grew up?
So when I was growing up, my dad and my mom, I guess, they both were together, and they were both pretty heavily invested in real estate in our local spot, which was Cape Cod. My dad was developing a bunch of houses around our neighborhood, and then it happened to be 2007, 2008 while he was doing all this. And so when everything started crumbling, he got impacted just like the majority of people in the space, and we actually ended up having to move because of it. And so what I remember from growing up is that money was always like very tight and not really talked about, especially because of everything that had just happened. So I grew up very ignorant to money, to be honest.
Gotcha. You know, that's actually, you know, I don't really get to talk to many people who felt the financial burden, even though you were younger, but
Yeah.
there was a huge financial burden on families, investors for the 2008 crash. So it's great to get a perspective of somebody who was actually heavily, oh, okay. I don't, okay, hold on. I want to rephrase that. Like, it's not, it's good to see that perspective of somebody who's actually impacted, you know, having to move, you know, probably losing tons of property. You're seeing this. And I'm sure prior to that, your family was doing relatively well in the space. Is that correct?
Yeah, he was developing a property with I think it was like 24 houses on it, single family homes. And then I was like, was in fifth or sixth grade at the time. So I'm like 12 years old, running around, helping the construction, like getting paid, getting an allowance and everything. And then I just remember it all just like coming to a complete stop. And I was like, I had no idea what was really happening. But later when I look back, I'm like, wow, that was pretty impactful.
So you mentioned having to move, and you mentioned that it caused a financial strain on your family. Do you did how did that impact you, as for like, were you living through the stress with your parents, or were they kind of like, this is our problem, we're going to try and shield you from this problem and make things happen regardless?
They were definitely really good at shielding me from kind of the reality of what was going on, but it was very obvious what was happening because we were living in a fairly nice house, and then we were renting out a different house, and we had to like kick those people out of the house and then move into that house, and that house was very run down and kind of just not a great house. um a lot smaller. It wasn't super run down. I don't want to sound like they were bad landlords, but it was not the same caliber house. And so it was very obvious. And then I was not asking for the same things out at the store because I knew I wasn't going to get it because we just didn't have the money anymore. So like I knew something was happening, but not the extent to which it was.
God, that's a fascinating concept to me. I think a lot of parents will try to shield their children from financial burdens, whatever that may be, whether it's a financial crash or just living paycheck to paycheck. But children aren't stupid, so they can
Yeah.
kind of pick up on the hints and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and progress on with the story. So your family is heavily impacted from this 2008 financial crash. They're no longer developing houses at that time.
Yeah.
Um, how did this transition into your finance story as you began to get older? Were you afraid of investing after living through that and seeing what your parents had to go through?
I was actually not afraid of investing because I'd seen everything that had just happened there, but I didn't fully understand like what the cause of it was and how it was just like overexposure to risk. So money really wasn't talked about at all. So it was just me stumbling onto it all on my own and coming across different people and like watching videos and trying to read articles and stuff. As like when I want to say 19 years old, I got my first credit card. And then I told my parents that I got my first credit card, and they didn't have any credit cards because of the bankruptcy. So I actually had to like talk my mom back into the concept of credit and like saying, if you use it okay, it won't have the same effect as last time. So it was like, yeah, it was unique.
Yeah, that's you know, let's dive into that a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So your parents were investors. I mean, I guess during that time credit really didn't matter at the time they were investing. So you're basically saying you had to, because what they went through is a form of trauma. We can recognize
Yeah.
that. So you kind of had to reintroduce them to say, like, if you use this tool wisely, unlike in the past, it can be a benefit. Like, you had to reteach them that, or was it just kind of like, you know what, we got burned by it once and we're not going to get burned by it again?
No, I had to reteach them everything. Like they knew what credit was and they knew how they should have actually done it, but they just didn't want to touch any of it, and they had kind of like just blocked it out of their head. So I had to like re-explain utilization and revolving lines of credit and like the different forms and everything. So they totally wiped it out of their minds.
Gotcha. Your parents kind of sound like Dave Ramsey followers, which is not a bad thing, not a bad thing at all. But Dave Ramsey, as we know, he got bit by the real estate bug. He went through a crash. He lost everything, and he decided to stay away from it. It sounds like that's kind of what your parents went through.
Yeah, pretty much.
Gotcha. So you obviously at a very early age, you already understand this whole credit thing and investing. You know, to get a credit card, how much to utilize. Where did that education start for you?
It was YouTube. I like effectively when I was in college and even high school, I was trying to figure out how to make money online. And then I just stumbled across like Dave Ramsey and Graham Stephan and a bunch of different YouTube channels and saw like investing in index funds and credit cards and credit card points. And like there's one guy like the Credit Shufu on YouTube. I watched his videos like religiously trying to understand what was going on.
You just listed two really great resources. Graham Stephan's actually the first guy I came across during this personal finance, and then also Dave Ramsey was like top three I came across. That was just mind blowing.
Yeah.
So okay, so now you understand how credit works, you understand the basics of investing, you understand index funds, you understand brokerage accounts and tax advantage accounts for the most part. What were you doing for a living? Had you figured out what you want to do for a living at this time, or how was that transition?
To be honest, I still don't even know what I want to do for a living long term. I was working as a waiter at the 99 restaurants. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. Yeah, so I was a server there, and then I transitioned into a home health aide, and I thought I was going to go down that line of becoming like a physician assistant and stuff like that. So I've jumped all over the place as far as my income sources.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's get right into the meat and potatoes of this interview, because this is what I'm dying to talk about, right? Because I'm very ignorant about it. When did you discover crypto and NFTs and Web 3.0? When did you get down that blockchain rabbit hole? Yeah, that's a good word for it. Because
so the first time I'd ever heard of Bitcoin, it was pretty much when I started investing. I think it was like late 2018. It might have been like midway through 2018, but sometime in there where it was just crashing from the last bubble it had gone on. And so I saw Bitcoin, and then I saw it go from like 6,000 down to 5,000, or 6,000 to 3,000 in the span of like a week. And I was like, oh, nope, no, thank you. It wasn't until I would say early 2020 when I first kind of started researching it to actually like figure out what Bitcoin and what crypto and blockchain was. And so that's kind of where it began.
gotcha. So you discovered in 2018, which I believe Bitcoin was started in like 2012. So it had matured enough to, I think media was already covering it in 2018. And you discovered it and you like, I'm not going to touch this with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, because it had just gone from like $300 to like 20,000, and then it was collapsing back down. And when I saw it in that week, it fell like 50%. So I was like, no, not interested.
Okay, so let's dive in. What was it? Well, first, was it just Bitcoin you were interested in the beginning, or what was it that you began to learn about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency as a whole that made you decide, you know what, this might be a good investment strategy?
Yeah, so at first it was Bitcoin, as I think most people get into the space, figure out Bitcoin. I saw that it was like an emerging technology, which is something that I am very fascinated by just as a whole, this technology. It was effectively not hackable. Like no one has ever actually hacked a blockchain. They always hack connection points to blockchains and create little loopholes there, but no one has actually hacked a proof of work style blockchain before. And then So I first found Bitcoin, and then I started looking into different cryptocurrencies because I wanted to see what else it could do, because Bitcoin in and of itself didn't make too much sense to me. Like, what kind of utility? It seemed very limited. It was either going to be cash or gold, and the cash, it's not stable, so who would ever spend it? And then the gold, like, I don't invest in physical gold, so why would I invest in a digital gold? And so that kind of brought me to finding Web3 and smart contracts and Ethereum and different layer one tokens like that.
Gotcha. So let's go back a little bit because you kind of
I know.
stumbled me for a second. So you said that the reason that the new technology fascinates you is because no one has ever hacked the blockchain itself, only the servers. Is that what you said? Not servers. You said
Yeah, I said
connectors.
connection points, but servers kind of similar.
So
And
when you talk about these connection points, I assume you're talking about essentially the I want to try and call like a holding company like Coinbase or Robinhood can hold crypto. Is that what you're talking about?
yeah,
Or
that's one of the things that can be hacked. There's also, like, when blockchains communicate to each other and have on and off ramps, those are also points of target for people to try and find little hiccups in the code where they can do malicious attacks and kind of gain access of people's crypto as it's being moved.
okay, so they're essentially when it's being moved from like one institution to another institution, there's vulnerable points.
Yes, sometimes, not everything. Some are valid, some are good.
Okay,
Lost my
so
vocab there.
this leads me to my first question, which you see a lot in the social media. You always see the headlines like, oh, this person forgot the password to their account and now there's $10 billion worth of Bitcoin in there, or whatever the case is. I'm exaggerating.
Yeah.
So, what makes that so unhackable compared to these loopholes that you're talking about during transfers or even with the connections?
Yeah. So in Bitcoin specifically, in order to hack the actual network of Bitcoin and get a hold of someone's private wallet, or even if you lose your keys, your key phrase, and you want to try and hack into your Bitcoin wallet to gain access to it, you need to solve a math equation, essentially. And the amount of numbers in this math equation are 10 times 2 to the 256th amount of digits. So it's like one of the largest numbers out there, if anyone's good at math and could figure out how many zeros that is. So the amount of guesses you would have to do is just like infinitely long. And
Gotcha.
then, yeah.
So you refer to it as a Bitcoin wallet, which is essentially the blockchain.
Mhm.
So why do people choose to hold cryptocurrencies in places outside of this almost 100% safe, unhackable source?
I appreciate you clarifying that it's almost, because theoretically it is a hackable thing. It just hasn't been done yet.
Mhm.
There's a couple reasons. One, ease of use. Like, if you're using something like Robinhood, all you have to do is swipe your finger and you buy some Bitcoin. The other is you could earn interest on different cryptocurrencies. You can effectively participate in banking, where you give the bank your money and they lend it out. You give a bank your crypto and they lend it out.
Gotcha. So you would say that using let's just call them third-party softwares like Robinhood, Coinbase, and things like that, it gives you easier access and more, what's the word I'm looking for, more uses to it. Like, it's not just buy, sell, and trade. It's lend, it's earn interest, it's all of these other things that normal banks that you can do with normal money.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, gotcha. So, oh, this is going great. Okay. So you have this almost unhackable Bitcoin wallet. It hasn't been hacked yet, and they don't foresee it happening due to these math equations. That's Bitcoin specifically. Does every crypto have this type of security, or?
No, absolutely not. So they have what's referred to as like the trilemma. You have scalability of a blockchain, you have security of a blockchain, and decentralization of a blockchain. And I don't know if you've ever seen one of those diagrams where it's like you're trying to build a character and you only have so many XP points to like spend. You can't have all three of them, or you have not been able to yet. So you have to pick scalability or security, or scalability and oh, I just forgot the other one. But so you have to pick 2 out of 3 of these, which is why Bitcoin is very clunky and it takes time. Like if you were to make a transaction in Bitcoin, it's going to take 10 minutes for it to actually clear on the network. So it's not very scalable because they chose decentralization and security.
Yeah, so actually that's a really great segue into my next question is oftentimes, and this I could be totally wrong, but I know that this is true for NFTs. A big reason why people flock to things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and things like that in the beginning, one of the reasons was because of it's untrackable, or at least it was at one point untrackable. So for example, scammers, they get a nice old lady to go to a Bitcoin machine, put her money in, send it to who, how, where, and it's gone. There's no way to track it, at least from my understanding, which is why they use that. So is that still the case? And I know it's not across all cryptocurrencies, but when you say decentralized, is this still something that can be tracked relatively easy, like a ACH transfer from one bank to another?
So the vast majority of blockchains are 100% transparent in wallet addresses. So you can track every single transaction that has ever happened on Ethereum or Bitcoin. Ethereum, you can go to Etherscan, type in a wallet address and see every single transaction that's ever happened. The problem is you do not know whose wallet that is, which is why regulations are starting to be enacted, at least in the United States, for KYC, which is know your customer, which is what banks have to go through, but crypto so far has not had to, but will in the near future. There are blockchains that are 100% like, what is the word I'm looking for? You cannot trace it at all. It's 100% secret. So there's both of them.
Gotcha. So we talked about earlier how Bitcoin essentially on the blockchain, it's almost unhackable. But these private companies that hold these wallets are much more accessible. So does this open up to ways that if a hacker wants to know, okay, who is this wallet user, I can hack this company, get that information? Or because when you say know your customer, I instantly think like you can set up an anonymous account. You don't have to put in your name, you don't have to put in your birthday, you don't have to put in your social or any of these personal identifiers. Is that how it's run, to where even truly the company doesn't even know who owns the wallet?
Right now, yes. Yeah.
See, that's crazy to me. Like that is like mind blowing. That yeah, that's crazy to me.
I literally just bought a Ledger wallet for Bitcoin. It's for any crypto, but I want to start stacking up to see if I can get to one whole Bitcoin on it. It's a cold storage wallet. It's the safest spot to store your Bitcoin because it is directly on the blockchain, but I didn't have to put any information about myself to open up these wallets. And now I have access to virtually every cryptocurrency, and nobody knows whose Ledger wallet this is.
Yeah, so I mean, I can definitely see why there's legislation coming down around this, because it's very, very easy for things like money laundering. So let's talk about you made a post, a video that, again, I was like, there are currently, with the current crypto market, things are very unstable. a lot of coins are dropping off, a lot of coins are doing this, and there's
Mhm.
actually brokerages, I think you call them brokerages, essentially trading platforms that are actually restricting trading and essentially going bankrupt or shutting their doors or open themselves to be sold and things like that.
Yeah.
And you made a video, actually you made two videos on that, but I want to go with the first one, just acknowledging that this is happening. So my question is, why is this happening?
So like a month or two ago, there was one stable coin, which is a coin that's pegged to a dollar. And so that it's like an on or off ramp for crypto so that you can buy this one stable coin and have your money represented as a dollar. So you don't have to go back to dollars because it's very cumbersome to go from dollars to crypto. This stable coin had, I believe it was $60 billion, or this entire ecosystem had $60 billion of value inside of it. And in the matter of 3 or 4 days, it collapsed to zero. It completely went away. You can still trade the token, but it's like fractions of a penny at this point. So it literally went to zero. And that caused a few different players, like lenders in the cryptoverse, to go bankrupt. And then it's been a trickling effect as people are like, oh crap, I don't have that loan anymore. Like I'm defaulting on my loan.
So that's a very scary thought for me. And I'm sure the listeners out there are probably getting a very scary thought because that is one of the things that, again, is, no offense, but crypto people have a lot of enticing arguments to make about crypto. For example, talking about stable coins, how the bank might pay you 2% interest, but the stable coin might give you 6% interest. And that's up there with the S&P 500 almost. And so these are very appealing arguments that someone could make. So to hear that these stable coins, which are viewed in the crypto society as one of the safest investments, one of the least volatile, to hear that going to zero almost instantly, what gives you the confidence that this isn't going to continue to happen in the future as more coins emerge and as some, don't just go away?
Yeah, so like a couple points. First, I want to say that the Terra Luna coin and that ecosystem they had, their stable coin was offering 18% returns. So that's why it had so much money in it. People were leveraging everything possible to go get a guaranteed 18%.
Okay, for those who didn't see, Patrick just put guaranteed in air quotes.
Yeah, I forgot people can't actually watch the video right there.
It's okay, man. Go ahead.
So I'm sorry, you have to repeat your question.
So what gives you the confidence that more stable coins will not share the same fate, or more might emerge, or as they emerge and go away so consistently?
So I think that a lot more will probably fall victim to this and end up going to zero. A lot of different cryptocurrencies are junk. They don't do anything and they will end up going away, which is very unfortunate for the people who don't look into it deep enough to understand that, or are still new in the space and think they know what they're doing and then get burned because it goes to zero. But not all of them are going to, and there's going to be a lot of winners in the end. And as new regulation comes into place, things like this likely will not happen as frequently or to the same severity.
Yeah, I think it's funny when you said that, because I am personally, just me, James speaking, I am less interested in things like crypto and more interested in things like NFTs, which essentially go hand to hand. And a big thing about NFTs, what brings their value, isn't the art itself, but it's actually the utility. The utility of what do you get for owning that piece of artwork. A prime example is like it's Ape Gang, or the Bored Apes, yeah, the Bored Ape Yacht Club, right?
Yeah.
The utilities that are offered, in air quotations, or things like Gary Vee has an TV Friends where he offers exclusive tickets or first rights, or there's so many things that come along with it. is that the same for crypto where certain cryptos have their own utility? For example, Ethereum, I know, is used to trade NFTs or to buy NFTs, sell NFTs. Are the ones that you say going to survive, is it because of their utility aspect or is it based on something else?
In my opinion, it's going to be based off of utility and how well put together the project is. So no offense to Dogecoin, its utility is that it's a meme. So as long as the meme is alive, Dogecoin will be alive, but memes don't last forever. So it's like, if that is your entire thing, that's not a longevity play. Versus Ethereum, which is programmable money, like there is more use cases for that than we have even realized at this point in crypto's journey.
Gotcha. And I'm gonna let you know Elon Musk is watching this and he ain't gonna like you bashing Doge. But
Honestly, I'm fine with that.
so would you say that out of all of the, because Bitcoin is obviously the most widely known and most widely accepted, do you think because of that, that gives it utility because people accept it more, and that is why its price has always been higher than the rest of them?
Yeah, it kind of has first mover advantage in a sense. I'm going to put quotes around that because it was not the first crypto. It was just the first successful crypto. Um, so it's the most well-known. People are familiar with it. It is extremely safe. And yeah, so I think it will likely stay around. And I bought this Ledger wallet to accumulate one full Bitcoin because I do think it will be successful in its ventures. So it'll continue to go up in price. Yeah, but I think that everything is going to need a utility. And for Bitcoin's utility is that you don't need anyone to help you transfer money. So you can, if you were, say, a refugee and you were fleeing a country, you could put all of your money into Bitcoin aside from the government. Government has no idea that you just did this. Leave your country and then have access to all your money. Versus if you went to a bank and tried to get all your money out of there and they knew you were a refugee, they likely wouldn't give you any of your money, or you wouldn't be able to access your money. So it definitely, yeah, it has utility.
So do you think that because Bitcoin has these very safe metrics like your Ledger wallet, is that what makes it safer than the rest of them? Because you put very much emphasis on safe. Like, is that the main safety thing, or is there other things about Bitcoin that kind of separates it from the competition as for security wise?
Um, as far as I'm aware, I could be completely wrong because there's so much more to all of it. It is pretty much because it is so safe and it is so well known and it's popular. Like that's why it has its position as the king for now.
Gotcha. For now, I like how you're. Yeah. But I mean, you're right because tomorrow's not guaranteed. I don't know what's gonna happen. You don't know what's gonna happen. So let me ask you. Let's continue this. Why are you choosing? Because you know what, I'm gonna put it all out on the table, Patrick. I don't like your bio. I think every portfolio should have at least some index funds, but that's for another thing.
You were the first person to comment on that.
Yeah. No, it's humorous because it's true. I mean, to be an investor, you really don't need any index funds, but it's just like I like index funds. So, with that being said, what has driven you personally to say this is going to be a long-term play? I like, what gives you so much faith in it? We talked about the utilities of it, like, but why is this currency going to appreciate?
So my main focus is on layer one cryptos that have smart contracts. So Bitcoin does not fit that mold. I just would like to accumulate one Bitcoin for the novelty aspect of it. But my long-term bet is that programmable money is going to capture a massive market share of the financial markets that we currently exist in. And like the when you start running numbers as to even if it just captures like 10% of the current financial market, the amount of money that would get soaked into this system of cryptocurrency is mind-numbing. It doesn't even make sense. So that's where the majority of my bet lays.
So, are you familiar with like Forex, foreign exchange?
Yeah.
So, would you compare, because there's obviously people who make a living trading foreign exchange. As far as I know, it's trading American dollars for whatever else dollars it appreciates, and you keep basically transferring it back and forth. Is that the plan for cryptos, or is it like, because when I think about crypto, like, let's be honest, the only people really utilizing it to its full extent are like the major countries around the world, not, no offense, but like not in the plains of Africa or places that are more remote and less technologically advanced. As so, in my head, logically, I would think that in order for something like this to take off, that is so wide, so many cryptos and things like that, you would need like a worldwide compliance or worldwide utilization of it.
Mhm.
Is that what you see coming?
In a very distant future, I think yes. But I tend to believe that us as a species is going to go towards the more efficient and more like a better technology. It could be wrong in that, but that also implies that we kind of regress or stand still, in my personal opinion. And it's funny that you say that the part about only first world countries really using blockchain technology for their advantages, because Cardano, their native token ADA, they are actually working with a couple different countries in Africa to provide digital identities. So think social security numbers for people here in the United States. So yeah, Cardano is providing several different countries in Africa with digital identities or social security numbers in a way to track and prove that they are who they say they are, because only 60% of the world is banked and documented. And so Cardano's main mission is to bank and document that other 40%.
Okay, so you got to break that down for me because you definitely, that went over my head. So Cardano is, I assume, is that a private company or is that a government company?
It's a private company.
So it's a private company, and they're going to the other 40% who are, let's just call them untraceable. You know, they probably don't have birth certificates. They're probably not in a government run area where they keep track of things as detailed as like the United States, even though we aren't perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to document them in a worldwide database. Is that sound about right, or am I missing the mark on that? Or
Yeah, no, that's pretty much there. I need to correct myself because the Cardano is not the private company. Cardano is a product of IOHK, and IOHK is the private company. I just need to make that differentiation. Yeah, they are trying to provide a way to document the citizens and kind of, I don't want to say keep an eye on them or keep track of them because that sounds very big brothery, but in a decentralized way where there is no one body that's in charge of everything. That's kind of what they're trying to do.
so why? I'm why? Like what is the purpose behind that? And like in relation to this crypto conversation.
Yeah. So Charles Hoskinson is the founder of Cardano and IOHK. And one of the examples that he gave was, again, going back to a refugee. Imagine there's a terrible event in your country and you have to flee from your home. And this home has been in your has been in your family for generations. Everyone leaves and comes back 6 months later, and there's a new family living in your house. And they're like, no, this is our house now. We found this empty. And you're like, but we lived there for 100, 200 years. Like, this is our home. And there is no governing body that you can turn to right now and be like, see, here's proof. Here's the deed to my house. And so Cardano is trying to give those people that solution.
Wow. Okay, that 100% makes sense. That 100% makes sense. So it's kind of a it's acting as a governing body in the form of keeping track of things like transactions made or record keeping that are in places that don't do record keeping.
Yes, exactly. And they don't do any of the governing themselves. They just kind of provide a roadmap or a layout for the government to then step in and keep track of it.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. You know what? No, that 100% makes sense. Essentially, they're creating the startup to where they can get all these people in, formulate a database, and they hand it over and say, "Look, this is what we gathered. You guys can take it from here." That makes
Yeah,
sense. That makes
yeah.
total sense. Okay. We're kind of off topic. So
Well,
let's go back to. So you mentioned that in the very, very, very distant future, that you believe that cryptocurrency is going to be the new form of currency. So that leads me to ask the question, kind of going back to the appreciation aspect, is like one of the things Brandon said on episode 38 is that the utilization of cryptos such as Bitcoin and Ethereum and the mainstream cryptos, the utilization exists exactly the same, whether it is $1 or $1 million. So, my question for you is, why do you expect it to continue to appreciate towards not $1 million, of course, but towards whatever price it should be at?
that comes down to a function of supply and demand. So if there is a capped supply on the crypto, then the price should continue to go up so long as demand goes up. There are a lot of cryptos out there that do not have a cap to their price. So then it wouldn't really make sense for that to be an investment. It could still go up in value, but if it has an infinite market, if it has an infinite number of tokens, then there's no way to tell how valuable each token would be.
Yeah, I mean, that totally makes sense. It's kind of the same thing. I like to relate it to real estate, you know, like there's land being created, but gosh darn, volcanoes don't create it as much as much as we want to. So there is a limited supply, and until we, you know, shout out to Elon Musk, until we colonize Mars, land is a very hot commodity, and if so, I understand that aspect. So that leads me to my next question. God, I love this. I'm learning so
Yeah,
much,
let's go.
and I really appreciate you answering all these questions and clarifying, because, you know, I want to say this, like, although I love me some index funds and I love me some real estate, I will never say absolutely not to any investment opportunity. I kind of have to get talked into it. And so this is kind of your way of talking me into, like, listen, I wouldn't count this out. You know, this can be a very big opportunity. So I love this education. And I really think that the listeners are going to get a whole lot from this. With
Yeah,
that being said, you mentioned that most, or let's say most of the hot cryptocurrencies are capped. In my head, that absolutely makes no sense. So can you explain why they're capped and what is stopping whoever created the initial supply from creating more?
yeah. First, I want to say, for anyone listening, do not just blindly invest into Cardano for say after I just gave that spiel about it, because I have lost a lot of money. So do not just listen to that investor. Don't listen to anyone, quite frankly. You have to do your own research. But back to your question, that's actually one of my biggest concerns in crypto, because Ethereum does not have a cap, and Ethereum is one of my biggest investments. Ethereum theoretically will implement a burning procedure to kind of cap out the amount of tokens, but it is a massive risk factor because a lot of them do not have a cap to the amount of tokens that could be minted.
Okay, so let's take Bitcoin for example. I know, or I've heard, which it could be 100% false, the more Bitcoin that is mined, the less is mined. So kind of break that down for the listeners, because they're probably in their cars listening. They're like, James, that makes no sense. And you're absolutely right. I have no idea what that means. Can you kind of break that down in relation to the limited supply you talked about?
Yeah, absolutely. Every like 10 minutes or so, a block is mined, and that is just a series of transactions being added to the ledger that is the blockchain. So the blockchain is just a series of transactions, and each time a block is added, new Bitcoin is introduced into circulation and given to whatever computer system solved the mathematical equation to add that block. So does that make sense? Kind of the mining aspect?
Not gonna lie, man, you lost me on that one. Okay, so let me say it back to you because this helps me understand. So
Yeah.
the mining a block is tracking transactions that are happening on the blockchain.
Yes.
So why is that finite?
So every certain amount of blocks that are added to the blockchain, the mining reward gets cut in half. It's called the Bitcoin halving. It happens every 4 years or so. And so initially, I think it was like 25 Bitcoin every single time a block was added. Now we're at, I believe it's 3.125. And in around 100, 120 years, it will get to 0 and they will just stop the mining rewards.
Okay, that's interesting because I believe you 100%, but I definitely saw, I read somewhere where it was like 2042 or something like that, to where the mining wouldn't be worth the effort anymore.
I think it's
it wouldn't be profitable.
2142, if I recall.
It might be. You might be 100% right. So, okay, now see, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I'm sorry. I'm still trying to understand this. So, when you say transactions, I imagine a transaction as one person giving something to another person. So, why would that stop?
So the transactions don't stop. It's just the reward to the person.
The reward for the transaction stop.
Yes.
God, there it is. There it is. That go. Listeners, listen, I am happy. Wow. Gotcha. Okay, so you stop being rewarded for the transactions. 100%. Got it. So transactions will happen indefinitely, but you just won't be rewarded for those transactions.
From the blockchain. There's still like a fee that you have to pay when you do a transaction that will go to them. But yeah, no more Bitcoin will be introduced.
That will go to
the miner, whoever logged the transaction.
I see. So if I want to trade you your 1 Bitcoin, and let's say I give you money, there is a person who, outside of you and I, that coordinates that transaction.
Yes, it's a computer, but yes, there's an entity that is providing the service of logging that transaction.
Okay, and then that person gets paid a fee. So right now, that person gets paid a fee and a little bit of Bitcoin gets mined. At some point, that person will get their fee, but there will be no Bitcoin introduced as a result of.
Correct.
God dang it, Patrick. I love this, man. I'm learning. Okay, listeners,
this is good.
Y'all, this is gold. This is absolute freaking gold mine. Okay. Ooh, let me calm down.
This is good too, because you're affirming in my head that I actually know what I'm talking about. Sometimes I question myself a little.
We could both just be way off the rails, man. We're talking about cryptocurrencies. Okay, so that 100% makes sense. And at some point, there will be no more Bitcoin created. So do you think that alone will, after there is no more Bitcoin created, do you think the appreciation is going to pick up from that point or decelerate?
I think it's going to decelerate because
we're not even going to be alive during that.
Yeah, no, we will not be when it's done. Because it's going to be such a massive market cap potentially at that point. So then it's just the nature of market caps. Like if it's sitting at $10 trillion, it's going to be so much harder to move it than now sitting at like 500 million or whatever.
Gotcha. Okay. Who I am loving this. So let's talk real fast about rug pulls. Those who do not know what a rug pull is, it's essentially where I say I create a company, Gen Z Money, and I give you guys a token. Boom, this is my token. All right. It says Gen Z Money on it. And I sell 10,000 of them and I keep 10,000. And I tell you guys, these are worth $10 a piece. And essentially, they're worth nothing. And I pull out all the profits after everybody buys it, and there's a somewhat of a crash. Why? We already know there's going to be legislation. There are already people being sued for this exact thing happening. How do people stay away from the currencies that are doing such things?
You need to put in time to research it. Like, you have to spend time and decide for yourself, is this person trustworthy, this team that's creating it? Not to plug my own stuff, but I put together like a little checklist for people to be able to use to kind of set the foundation to see if a crypto is a rug pull, because it is so challenging to figure it out. Like, you have to go research the people who are starting the crypto project and see what their history is. And then you need to go back on like the Wayback Machine and see, is this page something that literally just popped up a couple days ago, or is it been something in the works for like 6 months, a year or two? So like, it's just very work intensive.
By the way, don't be ashamed to plug your stuff. This is your episode, man.
All right,
So, so people need to stay away. So, out of last time I did an episode on this a couple months back, and at the time there was like over 10,000 different cryptocurrencies. Out of those 10,000, how many do you think, like a percentage wise, are actually worth anything, like actual utility wise?
it's so hard to say because I haven't looked into all of them. If I had to genuinely guess, it would be like 5 to 10% of them. And like 90 to 95% of them are just either bad execution, poor management, or just straight out a scam.
Okay, so if you well, not if you're talking to listeners out there and you're telling them that, listen, if you jump into this crypto space, there's a 90% chance that you're going to lose all of your money.
Not necessarily, because hopefully you put in research and you don't just go on TikTok and buy whatever coin is being pumped to you. Hopefully you actually go through and do your due diligence. Otherwise, you just kind of stay away.
Gotcha. So you already mentioned that you have resources on the due diligence you need to do, which of course, guys, I'm going to have that link down in the show notes where you guys can find that. Let's so essentially, if you're not willing to put into work, then you might as well stay away from crypto and go for something a little more mainstream, a little more regulated.
Like index funds or something.
Like index funds. See, I knew I'd get into praise some index funds by the end of this freaking interview. Okay, so let's talk about NFTs. Are you in the NFT space? Or are you kind of sticking away, or what are your views on NFTs?
I have, I think like 12 or 13 different NFTs on Ethereum and Cardano's blockchain. So I like them. I think they're a good idea overall. I kind of wish I didn't buy most of them because I'm down dramatically on all but like 3. But they were gambles going into them, and I knew that.
Gotcha. So you didn't view them when purchasing as an investment, as something that's going to appreciate over the next 10, 20, 30 years, or?
I had hoped, and I did research into them to try and find decent ones that I thought would appreciate over time, but the amount of money that I put into it, I understood was potentially going to go to zero because these just came out of nowhere in the last like 2 years or so.
So do you have that same viewpoint on your cryptocurrency holdings?
No, but
Can you explain the difference why?
yeah, hopefully I'm paying close enough attention to the cryptos to see changes in what is the most dominant crypto at the time. So NFTs, like, I don't know if this game token NFT or if this web domain NFT is going to do anything in the long term, but I personally believe that layer one blockchains will inevitably take over part of the financial system. So I have more faith in the cryptos that I purchase versus the NFTs that I purchase.
Gotcha. So let's circle back because haha, I'm guilty of it, and you actually admitted you're guilty of it. I'm gonna admit I'm guilty of it now on this podcast. You gave some advice for people going back to the brokerages, the trading platforms, closing down. I can see the look on your face. You know where I'm going with this. And you
Yeah.
gave the advice that, listen, guys, there could be a movement coming where some of these brokerages are going to be closing down. They're going to be limiting trades, and you might not be able to get your money out. And you admitted in one of your videos that you were actually victim to one of those happening. Can we talk about that for a second and essentially what happened in that situation? Has it been resolved? What are your thoughts on it? Things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I saw Luna going bankrupt, that $60 billion cryptocurrency that we talked about earlier, going to zero. I saw that causing some financial institutions to go bankrupt. And then I saw Celsius, a lending protocol for crypto. They locked users' funds because they needed users' funds to pay off some of their debt. And so I put the video out and I was like, hey, just so that you're already taking a risk being in crypto. You shouldn't risk it being on an exchange right now because things are getting very sketchy. I thought that Voyager Digital, the brokerage that I had money in, was going to be okay. And so I left my money there and I took that gamble. Looking back, I really shouldn't have, because I tried to warn everyone and I didn't heed to my own advice. Voyager ended up freezing withdrawals and then filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which is different from, I believe it's Chapter 7 bankruptcy, where everything's just gone. Chapter 11 is a restructuring of the debt. So Voyager is still going to be there, but essentially they're taking everyone's money to pay off the different investors and different lenders that they have obligations to.
Okay, so let's talk about how did this come to fruition? Is it due to the lack of regulation? Did users know that in putting your money into this institute, we'll call it an institution just because that's what I can remember, putting your money into this institution now becomes an asset of that institution?
People should have known, but the vast majority did not know, because
So
it's not something people look into.
yeah, I was gonna say, so like, why do you say it like that? Like they should know? Because I compare it to like a bank, or let's use an actual brokerage account like Fidelity. I have a Fidelity account. The assets that I hold with Fidelity, the assets do not belong to Fidelity. They're only managed by Fidelity. So why is that different for the institution that you're referring to?
Because the way that they currently operate is more like a bank. So it should be like a brokerage where they're just kind of giving you a means to purchase different crypto assets like a stockbroker is, but it is acting like a bank where they're taking your crypto and they're lending it out to people who they seem fit borrowers, and then they're earning interest and then giving you a fraction of it, just like a bank would. The only problem is there is no governmental insurance to, like FDIC insurance or SPIC for brokerages. There isn't any yet. So when they went under, they took all of these assets, which were technically on their balance sheet, even though they were yours and mine, not yours, but just mine. And they used it to pay off their obligations.
God, that's such a fascinating yet terrifying concept. That that this is something that it can't happen. So I guess that is a beware to those that are using online trading systems, online institutions, that these are assets of that institution. And if that institution goes under, so do your assets. So that's a very good beware, which is probably why you refer to your I forgot the name of it, but your blank wallet, that
Ledger.
your ledger wallet, that it is yours. That is an asset of yours. Now, if you lose the password to it, I assume all of that is gone. So how do you sleep? How do you sleep at night knowing that you could potentially have, if Bitcoin, does recover, you could have hundreds of thousands of dollars locked behind a single password that if you forget it, there is no forget my password, email me there is? Are you shaking?
No, there's not.
Oh, I was going to say, like, that's hackable, man.
Yeah.
But like, how do you sleep at night knowing that like you have hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially at some point locked behind one password? Like, that's scary to me.
Yeah, honestly, it's not like I don't lose sleep over it, but it is definitely something that I'm a little stressed about. I have my seed phrases written down in so many different spots because I know that's dangerous in and of itself, because if someone finds one, they could hack all my stuff. But I'm like, I can't lose this. I need it to be in multiple spots. And I'm a very forgetful person. So
what if you decide to change the password one day and you forget your password? It's gone.
yeah, you can't recover it. It's gone. There was one case in the original Ledger wallets where someone was able to override it and hack it, but they quickly changed that. So theoretically, you could hack one of these devices to get the seed phrase, but again, it hasn't been done yet, and but that's what we talked about earlier. Like, the blockchain is not necessarily hackable, but the connection points to the blockchain are hackable.
So is that wallet a connection point to the blockchain?
Yeah.
So it is more vulnerable than the blockchain, but it is still not vulnerable.
Correct. This is the safest way to get access to the blockchain, but it is still not as safe as the blockchain.
It's crazy.
It's very confusing.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. All right. And now I'm going to ask another. You may think this is a very stupid question, right? What is the blockchain stored on? Is it a server? Is it what truly? Something has to be running it. Something has to be storing this data physically, or even what truly is the blockchain?
Yeah. So the blockchain is stored on every single computer that is running the program to mine Bitcoin. So that's why they call it decentralized, because it is not on one single server. It is on hundreds of thousands of servers all at the same time. And they all have to agree on it that this is the blockchain. This is Bitcoin's blockchain. So that's also why it can't be shut down, because as long as there is two computers running Bitcoin, it is still in existence.
So there is still a possibility that the blockchain could go bye-bye, but the likelihood is kind of the same as the hacking analogy you used with 2 to the 264th x squared times.
Yeah, a million zeros.
So yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. So does it exist? So it exists everywhere at once, or is it like 0.01% is on this computer, 0.01% is on this computer, to where we can take out 99% of them, but that still 1% holds 1% of the blockchain?
No, the whole transaction record is on every single computer that's running the program.
The transaction record.
Yeah.
But what about the actual Bitcoin itself that is stored on the blockchain?
That's kind of where it gets confusing. And I myself haven't even completely been able to differentiate Bitcoin from the blockchain itself. Like, I've read articles on it and I've gotten it in the moment, and then I walk away and I'm like, what did I just read? But
This is gonna be me on this interview, man. This is gonna be. I'm gonna have to watch this back a couple times to even understand what's going on. But go ahead.
yeah,
I'm
no,
sorry.
it's a lot. Like Bitcoin is the blockchain, from my understanding. The blockchain is a transaction record of everything that's ever happened on Bitcoin. And then, yeah, no, I don't want to give any false
False
information
advice.
there.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's I have no problem with that, man. Sometimes you gotta be like, I don't know, because you've known a lot of these answers. I'll take a I don't know for this one because
yeah, at this point, yeah,
it seems like a pretty basic question, but obviously from the look on your face, you're like, it's much, much deeper than
yeah, it's
yeah, I
just,
feel that.
yeah, it just confuses me personally.
Gotcha. Okay, so we talked about NFTs. You own some NFTs. So, and you believe that it is going to be similar to the cryptocurrency space to where truly the value is not going to lie in the art or in the currency itself, more as the utility for it.
Yeah, and the biggest thing I think is like concert tickets or music, where the artist sells the concert ticket or the album, and then people can pirate the music and sell it on their own, and the artist doesn't get to see any of that, or they can copy it a bunch of times and put it on their own devices. In this, if you were to make an NFT of an album, you can't copy it. Like, it is one of a kind, and you could make 100 million copies of it, but now there's only 100 million copies of it. And so, and then every time it gets sold or bought and sold, the rights to that album, the artist, the original artist, would get a small commission again. So I think it just is really good for the artists themselves in that domain.
So would you say it's probably along the same lines of that 90% of NFTs are or going to be fluff, while there's a good 10% that are actually going to have utility and longevity that holds up to its actual price point?
Yeah, yeah. I would say it's probably even more so NFTs are going to fail than actual cryptocurrencies because it's so easy to make an NFT.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it seems you make it seem pretty easy to make a cryptocurrency too, because there's a whole lot of people doing it. But yeah, I see
Yeah,
what you mean.
yeah, you gotta have some coding knowledge to make a cryptocurrency. You can just upload a photo to OpenSea and click make NFT, and then you have an NFT.
That's it. I'm about to go make me some NFTs, man.
You might
Okay,
as well.
and then real fast, let's go over Web 3.0. You've explained it to me on social media, which I really appreciate, but I want to explain it to our listeners. So go ahead, break. You did a great job breaking down the difference between Web 1.0, Web 2.0, and Web 3.0. Do you mind quickly going over that explanation for the listeners who don't really understand what this stuff is? Because I think of it like I got to go get a whole new computer. I got to, update for 6 days. So keep bringing
Yeah,
it.
yeah. No, I would love to go over this, and hopefully I hit the same kind of key points that we were talking about. Um, Web 1 is the version of the internet where you could only consume information. So you think of different things like Yahoo or MSN, where you would just go to these curated feeds of information that the website holder was able to provide for you, and you only saw what they wanted you to see and things like that. Versus Web 2, you were also able to create information. So think Wikipedia, where you can go on and add things to Wikipedia pages, or Facebook and Instagram, where you can go create information for other people to go then consume, or even you consume yourself. But these two still exist together on the World Wide Web. Like these, it wasn't like a leave one behind and progress to the next one. It was just they coexist for each having their own purposes. Web 3 comes in and is aiming to solve one of the problems that Web 2 has, in which you do not technically own the information that you post onto the internet. It is owned by the websites that you are posting under. So if you post something on Instagram, Facebook owns all of the data that is generated from your post.
So, and what he's referring to are like you get insights from posts to say, this is how many people viewed this video, this is how many people commented, this is how many people clicked on it. This is all information that things like Facebook or Instagram give to you voluntarily, but it's their information to give. They're not legally obligated or even morally obligated to do that. And the reason they do that is because I mean, it's nice, but also it does create revenue.
Yeah.
So compare that to Web 3.0.
Yeah. So like Facebook, we'll just stick with that. Or no, let's use Google because I have an example in Web 3.0 that we could use to compare and contrast. Google, if you are Google searching stuff, they are gathering data on what you're Googling, what time of day you're Googling it, how often you might be Googling this thing. And they will give it to advertisers, but they will only give a small fraction of it, and they will take money from those advertisers and just put it in their pocket. It's a big part of Google's revenue. So a Web3 version of Google, and it's not even an exact replica, but it is a version of Chrome, is called Brave. And Brave will still harness this data from your searches, but you can give it permissions and you can set boundaries and you can be like, I don't want you to look at this type of data, or yeah, go ahead and look at everything. And in turn for that, they will sell your data still after you've given permission and then give you part of the revenue that they get. And it's a small amount because you're only generating so much data, but then you get to set up these blocks and be like, no, I'm not okay with you doing this with my data. That right there, that's fine, but you got to pay me for that because I generated this data.
Gotcha. So it sounds like something along the lines of the company, I'm not sure if you heard of it, ExpressVPN, to where you can set limitations on who can see your IP address, what IP you're displaying, and you kind of have control over what people have access to. It's the same thing with this Brave Web 3.0 thing.
Yeah, it's fairly similar. I believe you pay for that VPN service, correct?
You do.
Yeah. So Brave has its own VPN service. I think you pay for that one as well. But so it is very similar in that if you were to then merge it with Chrome itself, not the search engine Google, because you can still Google things on Brave, but Chrome, the actual web application.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I think a big misconception that I had before you explained it to me, and that many people probably have, is like, this guy Patrick's crazy. We never had a Web 1.0, Web 2.0, but really it's not different web providers. It's truly just software differences. The software differences from the early web compared to the current web and the future web. There's software differences. There's different companies hosting these things, and they all have their own limitations or accessibilities.
Yeah.
And so, like, some would say that we are already in Web 3.0 because there's already companies creating things like Brave, to where if you, it's just like Facebook and it's just like Yahoo. Like, if you don't use Yahoo, then that's that. If you don't use Facebook, then you're not technically using Web 2.0. And if you don't use these third-party softwares that actually give you money for selling your information, then you're not technically using Web 3.0, even though it technically exists.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't have to partake in it, but they're offering you free money and for you to be able to know the restrictions of your data usage, which I don't see why you would offer that up without, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a no-brainer. Like, why pass it up? I mean,
Yeah.
you're just essentially giving yourself more privacy. God, Patrick, this has been so awesome, man. Tell me, like, do you have any short-term goals for your money or your investing in the crypto NFT space that you hope to accomplish within the next 6 months to a year?
Yeah. So I would love to accumulate one full Bitcoin. I think it would just be cool. And I think I'm going to have the next year or two while prices are depressed to kind of accumulate over time. even if it just ends up being a novelty item, I just think it'd be fun to look back and see it. I am looking into different cryptos and stocks to try and research and accumulate, but really I want to focus on my income because my income is very lackluster and there's only so much I can do investing like $200 or $300 a month. I need to boost that up so that I can carry on.
Yeah, I think that although I might not agree with your investment approach, it's not for me personally. I still think that it is admirable that you've dedicated so much time to learning this new stuff, because at the end of the day, whether I like it and I use it or not, you're already 20 steps ahead of me. And so, what is the absolute worst that can happen? We don't use that stuff and you still have the knowledge. What is the best that can happen? You're 20 steps ahead of people like me, or people that are listening to this. So I just say that to show that, like, the education that you've put into this is obvious education you've put into this. There's no downside. So I just wanted to say that before we continue on.
I really actually genuinely appreciate that because especially right now where everything is down so much, it's very easy to poke fun at it and make fun of all of the time spent researching it when they think it's just a scam. So I really appreciate that.
No, I think, see, the point of this podcast wasn't to bring you on and say, haha, I told you so, because let's be honest, we've seen this before. We've lived through this exact moment before with the crypto market. So, and I'm a firm believer in the real estate market has crashed, it's always recovered. The stock market has crashed, it's always recovered. If I look at history, the crypto market has crashed and it's always recovered. Most crypto, or the big cryptos, have crashed and they've always recovered. So I'm not one to just brush it off and say, I told you so, Patrick. No, because I truly believe it is going to recover, because I think blockchain is a future of technology. But I look at it, I'm like that old geezer from the 1900s. I was like, oh, credit cards. I carry gold. You know what I mean? So, and so I don't want to poke fun at anybody who's in crypto. I'm genuinely curious, and I hope to get to a point at some point where I'm as confident in it as you are. Like, I'm way more confident in real estate. You're way more confident in crypto, and there's nothing wrong with that, man.
Yeah, no, and I'm trying to step over into the real estate asset class. So yeah, it's exactly how you just outlined it.
Give me a call, man. I might be able to teach you a couple things. All right.
I'm so down for that.
All right, Patrick. So, what are some of your long-term goals that you hope to accomplish within the next 5 to 10 years? And what does the finish line look like for you?
I would like to, like I just said, buy some real estate. So I would like to, in 5 to 10 years, have like 5 to 10 units of real estate or doors. As for like an end goal, I don't necessarily know if there is an end goal just because of how compounding works in my financial journey. But once I get to a point where I can comfortably live off of the returns of my assets, so be it rent or dividends or staking my crypto, I'm quitting my job and I'm going to go sit on a beach until I get extremely bored.
And then go figure out what's next, man.
Yeah, we'll visit that branch when it gets there.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's super duper interesting to point out that although you lived through a major real estate crash and you really felt the repercussions, that you still have an interest in it. You know, again, that could be trauma for some people to think like, I'm never touch real estate again because of the crash. But it's interesting that you still see hope in it. You still have faith in real estate. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
All right, Patrick. So these are the last questions of the podcast. And of course, I ask these questions to every single guest I bring on. Are you ready?
Let's go. I'm ready.
Question number 1. Everyone has their own definition of what it means to have financial peace. What is your definition?
To not have to think about money every single day. just to be able to exist and pay for your lifestyle without the mental strain.
I have no argument for that one, man. I love it. Question number 2. If there are listeners out there that want to start building wealth and they have no clue where to get started, what would you tell them?
To be completely honest, I would start going on YouTube. There are a lot of people who are trying to create a following, and one of the best ways to do that is to provide quality information. And so they do this for free. You can't trust everyone, and I do never invest blindly based off of someone's advice, but it is a very good resource for people.
Yeah, I think YouTube University, baby. I love it. But and also another thing people like to, I call it get clout off of is selling fear. So don't fall for the selling fear. The sky is falling, people, because it works. That's what the news does. It sells fear. That's what the headlines are for. Don't fall victim to that. You need to pick something and go for it, and go for it relentlessly, whatever that is. So I love it.
Yeah.
Question number 3. If there's one thing you could advise everyone to avoid doing to build wealth, what would that be?
I guess there's 2 things. Am I allowed to have 2 things?
You're allowed to have as many things as you want, man. I don't know why I say one thing.
Do not blindly follow people, because even if they've been right in the past, everyone is going to be wrong at some point. So you need to do your own thing. And when you're doing your own thing, do not put everything that you have into that one thing. You need to have a little bit of diversification, unless you genuinely just don't have any money and this is your Hail Mary. But
I love it, man. And I want to put some emphasis on it. Even this podcast, don't just listen to something that I said or that Patrick said and go out to, oh, James told me to do it. No, or Patrick told me to do it. Do your research, guys. This is for educational purposes only. The same way I'm learning every single day, I hope you guys are learning, but also I don't trust every single thing I hear, no matter what it is. So even on this podcast, don't just go out and act on it. Do your own research. And also, I love it. Don't bet the farm on it.
Yeah,
it's very simple. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, because if you trip, now you have a bunch of scrambled eggs. Question number 4. If there is someone out there that doesn't believe they can reach financial peace due to their age, race, religion, sexual orientation, etc., what would you say to change their mind?
That's literally anyone in this current state can reach some sort of financial stability. Like, you need to put in a lot more effort based off of your certain circumstances. Some people have it a lot easier based off of winning the genetic lottery or the geographic lottery. Like, it is unfortunate, but it's the way a lot of it works. Just keep going. You have to believe in yourself. You have to have a good idea, and you have to have the wherewithal to continue to take steps forwards. Even if it's just a baby step, you're still moving.
Oh my God, that's such a good way to close it, man. Like, just take steps. It doesn't matter if it's a 1 foot or if it's 1 inch. As long as you're moving, you're surviving, right? Patrick, golly, man, this has been such an informational and educational interview, man. This is one that I actually haven't done before, where it's like a Q&A, where you were just like, knock them out of the park. Next one. I love it. And
it's fun.
I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all of your knowledge. And truly, I hope people are going to get something from this. I have no doubt in my mind that people are going to get some information. Now, if they take the leap and if they buy one of your little nifty wallet things, or if you forget the password, I don't know. But I think knowing every single option available to you in this investing space makes you a much more I can't use the word educated, but it makes you a better investor. Knowing every single avenue you have at your disposal, even if you do not use them all, I think it makes you a better investor as a whole. So I really appreciate you coming on, sharing your expertise. I didn't expect you to know everything, but gosh darn it, you came real close to it, man. This has been awesome.
Thank you so much, James. I appreciate this a lot.
Yeah, Patrick, but before we go, where can people find out more about you?
You can go visit at @that_investor on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Shoot me a DM. I absolutely love talking about financial information or really just anything technology. So yeah, there I am on social medias.
Yeah, I love how hopeful you are, Patrick. And of course, guys, you guys are not going to have to go far. I'm going to have his Instagram, his TikTok, and his Twitter all linked down in the show notes below where you guys can find it. Patrick, this has been such an amazing conversation. I hope to have you on in the future, once the market recovers a little bit, and then you can come on and say, all right, I told you guys, I believed in it, and it's working out, man. So I really appreciate you coming on, sharing this evening with me. And I truly hope for the best of you. And I love the content you're putting out. So please don't stop, man.
Thank you. Absolutely. No plans on stopping. And likewise, too. This is good.
I appreciate you, man. You have a blessed rest of your night, man. And guys, that was my interview with Patrick. Man, oh man, we covered so much stuff. I mean, oh my goodness, I learned so much. I learned about Web 3.0, making money off your data, even though it is a small amount. It's such great. It gives me confidence as we start rolling into the future and innovating more and learning about Bitcoin and how it can have a place in our current capitalistic society. And it obviously has a place with all of the data storage and transfer options. And just, man, oh man, this was such a great, and it was such a fulfilling interview. Patrick, he didn't bring what I thought he was going to bring. He brought so much freaking more than I thought he was. So shout out to Patrick. Of course, I'm going to have all of his social media linked down in the show notes below if you guys want to reach out to him and ask him questions that I maybe missed, right? I'm not perfect, but he's so knowledgeable. He's always willing to lend a helping hand. And of course, guys, check out my website down below where you can schedule one-on-one with me. Follow me on all the social medias if you aren't. Without further ado, I'm going to get up out of here, guys. My name is James Bowman, and always remember, you're only as secure as your ability to perform. So spend your life accumulating assets that can perform for you. Later, guys.